What's the quickest you've noped out of a job? Was looking for a sporadic part-time job. Applied at this little catering company that had been around for a while. Showed up for the interview and realized that a rich guy had bought it 2 weeks earlier for his wife to have a hobby. They fired everyone and hired friends' kids to help out. I was literally the only one with cooking or hospitality experience. They get me to help out for a few hours to see if they like me. We get along and there are a couple red flags, but the pay is about 50% higher than the going rate. We agree to meet on the Sunday to finish up prep for the week and get everything sorted for my role. Show up 15 minutes early and nobody is there. I waited 30 minutes and said fuck it, since I literally just started and didn't have her number, but she had mine. She calls the next day at 8 AM demanding I don't go to my regular job and get in there to help her out since she waited an hour for me. I told her I was there at 2 and waited. She then explodes saying that she owns the business and was with her husband at brunch, so it would have been rude to step out to call me. Then she goes Flamer's baking company on me. Goes off on how she fired everyone because these cooks think they knew better than her, but she goes out and eats all the time. How she knows more about restaurants than anyone in the city, and how as a grateful employee I should have sat and waited for her to finish her very important brunch. I ended up hanging up on her. They were closed within 3 more weeks. Seems she knew so much about restaurants she forgot that to own a food service business, you need a food handling certificate and at least one person with certification. Not sure if this counts, but it looks like a good majority of the replies on here revolved around noping out during the interview process. Had an interview at a large state correctional facility to be a nurse. I came with a sheet of paper full of questions and a pencil. I had a lot of questions to figure out whether the insane pay was worth my time. I was interviewed by our employee and some lady with a fancy title who wasn't even a nurse and was not even the manager of the nurses. I have no idea why she interviewed me. Once they were done interviewing me, I whipped out my long list and my pencil. I could see nervousness wash over their faces. They could hardly answer any of my questions. The answers they did give for some of my questions were mediocre. The only question they could answer with certainty was this one. Me. I have been told that the nurses can be mandated to work up to 24 hours. How often are nurses being mandated? Hours? Well, it's happening quite often. But that's why we are interviewing you. We are hoping to change that. That concluded my questions. I still had quite a few more, but after hearing that I was like nope. The lady with the fancy title could see I had many more questions written down when I began to fold up my sheet of paper and put it away. She looked so defeated. The pair acted like they've never been questioned during an interview before, and maybe they hadn't. I would think any nurse interviewing at a prison would at least make a mental list of questions to ask. They offered me a job the following evening. Obviously that was a big fat hell no. Not really that quick of a nope out of a job, but I've only had 3 jobs in my life and this still pisses me off to this day. I signed up to Milios to work as a delivery driver. My parents said to get a second job, and I said I could do deliveries, and since it was their car I felt that I had to go through them to see what they thought of the idea. They were okay with it, so I decided to try for the job. I get there, and this sweet old lady manager sits there with me while I'm filling out the employment form. She asks about the hours I'll want, how the job will be, and just generally chatting, and whatever. I was going to be paid $2 less an hour, but she said that tips would make up for the wage drop. My parents said similar, so I figured, fuck it, I'll take a chance. I start working a week later, after everything went through, and I come into work on my first day. Immediately I'm asked to take orders for people at front counter. I say that I was hired as a driver, and they said they can't really pay me to just sit around all day, so I should be working. Immediately I start thinking about how weird it is. They barely teach me how to take orders. The few people working there just sort were like, dude, take his order, and I had to say that I didn't know how to do that. They really didn't know how to train people, and it was very obvious from the get-go. They constantly just assumed I knew things, or that I would just understand eventually. Once I got my first delivery for the day, I booked it and just got through the order as quick as I could. It was nice, not gonna lie. Pretty nice job, and I got a $5 tip, so it was sort of worth it, I guess. The moment I got back they asked me to start sweeping around the place and to wipe down the tables. First remark again, that I was hired to drive, and the manager replies with the same thing as before, we can't pay you to stand around and do nothing. I figure alright, whatever. I sweep up, and they send me home after, I would say, maybe 3 or 4 hours. The next 3 or 4 days were similar. A few hours of work and only one order per day. The money was not adding up, and on the final day I worked there, they told me to make sandwiches. I told them I've never done that and that. Oh, but you work at big restaurant chain, so you'll be alright, neglecting that I've never even touched any of the food. I immediately have no idea what to do, and they explain nothing. I'm supposed to be putting meat on sandwiches and sauces on the sandwich buns, but nothing is labeled at all. I keep asking them for help, and one of them straight up just says, dude, I'm kind of busy right now. One of the customers makes jokes and stuff. First day, haha, it's fine man, to ease it a little bit, but I'm getting more and more angry, since they actually don't even bother training me or anything. They just shove me into making sandwiches and expect me to know everything. We get through the small 20-minute rush, and one of the staff tells me to start washing lettuce in the back. At this point I decided I'm going to quit, and I'm just trying to find the quickest way to. A regional manager comes in and starts talking with the manager for a bit. I get finished with the lettuce and I talk with her about my employment. I tell her that I was hired to be a delivery driver and that I was not doing that while being paid $2 less an hour. The numbers weren't adding up, and I honestly did not believe this job was worth my time or for me at all. She said it was fine, and that I would be taken off the schedule and be sent a check for the time spent working. Never got the check. Don't even care. I hated that I had to do the same work as everyone else around me and be paid $2 less an hour for it. The money was not worth it at all, but the staff was alright, if a little awkward, since they were all still in school and I wasn't. I'm a dropout. Sue me. They just could not train people for sheet and seemed to have no ability to understand that new people don't know sheet. TLDR, company was a variation of a pyramid scheme and were very unprofessional, so I actually quit 24 hours before I started my first shift. I recently went on the job hunt. I applied for a management position at a mid-range direct sales company in Dallas, and they were way too eager for me to interview. I arrived 5 minutes early, and there were about 20 other people in the waiting area. Each interview that I witnessed lasted around 7 minutes, and they were 45 minutes late getting to me. When mine rolled around, it lasted about 10 minutes, and consisted of them apologizing and making me sell to them. Despite my misgivings, I came back the following day for the second round interview where they essentially explained this position as a pyramid scheme, but I don't have to buy the product. They just supply it. Once I peddled their wares for a few weeks, I could start recruiting and training my own team, which is where the money came in. I would be grandfathered into the sales they made and would be promoted once I had recruited enough people that stayed a certain amount of time. Okay, I could deal with this, but they were 38 minutes late interviewing me. Again, they offer me the job and tell me a start date of Monday the following week. Someone should be in touch with the formal offer and more details. 3 days pass with no call, so I email nothing. Next day, I call nothing. Saturday rolls around, and I still can't get anyone, so I go in person. I waited 50 minutes in the waiting room, while the receptionist kept assuring me it would only be another minute or two the entire time. I politely informed the receptionist of my name, and that I do, in fact, quit. Was laid off from my job of 12.5 years as a graphic designer for a firm in the DC area. Started looking and got a lead on a contract position for some random company in the area. Spoke to a recruiter over the phone and everything sounded great. Specifics of the designer job and details sounded on par to what I was interested in. We set up an interview. I show up, and the receptionist seats me in their oddly large waiting room. Many chairs. As I wait, more and more folks come in and sit. I start to get suspicious. Shortly, two sharp dressed cool talking hit bro dudes burst in and introduce themselves to everyone in the waiting room, asking us to all come into the conference room for a little intro video. Now I'm really puzzled. The conference room fills up. It's just a large room with many chairs all facing a screen with a projector in the center on a table. The bro dudes come up front and do a little spiel on how cool the company is and that we are now going to enjoy a video. Lights go down, video starts playing. Turns out it's a company that sells benefits packages to law enforcement and public safety groups. The video makes it look like you work for a fraternity/sorority with parties, hip young folks getting lots of money, and having lots of fun. Reminds me of Home Industries. That's the sort of place this is, Jen. A lot of sexy people, not doing much work and having affairs. I stood up and walked out after about 10 minutes into the video. As I did, the bro dudes paused the video and called me out in front of the group. They were prepared for this. Where are you going? I'm leaving. Why? Because I'm leaving. They continued to ridicule me and told me I was making a mistake. I told them that they had just flat out lied to me on the phone and laughed as I walked out the door. Fat companies that bait and switch you like that in particular. I learned a good lesson that day. When I was 16 I was recruited for a door-to-door newspaper subscription sales job by a guy I met in a mall parking lot. A promising start, right? That wasn't the deal breaker. I met him again the next afternoon and he took me and a few other new recruits to a housing development in his van. Along the way, he talked practically non-stop and was extremely enthusiastic about the position, like, suspiciously so. In retrospect, he'd probably been hitting the Florida snow beforehand. That wasn't the deal breaker. When my new co-workers could get a word in edgewise, I learned that one of them believed aliens were beaming mind control signals that could be blocked by literal tinfoil hats. Well, aluminum foil. And while the rest didn't share his zeal on the matter, they all seemed to find it plausible. That wasn't the deal breaker. Fortunately, I didn't end up working with any of those fine specimens of humanity. The buzzed boss dropped us all off at different parts of the housing complex, and I canvassed houses on a dreary November day. Over the course of 4 or 5 hours, I only managed to sell one daily subscription to a family with deaf parents. The children translated my pitch into signing, and 2 Sunday-only ones to a pregnant woman whose dog kept trying to force its way past her to jump on me, and to a very furtive woman with 2 black eyes. That wasn't the deal breaker. When the van picked me back up in the evening, I gave the completed subscription forms to the boss. He explained that, no matter what option people chose, he signed everyone up for the daily option. Once they noticed they were receiving and being charged for a paper every day, it would be up to them to call the newspaper and deal with the customer retention team to downgrade their subscriptions if they could. He laughed about difficult the newspaper made it to change a subscription. That was the deal breaker. I forget exactly how I quit, but I remember it was in the van with the tinfoil hatter and other soon-to-be former colleagues. I think the shady AF boss asked if I'd be available the next day, and I told him that I wouldn't be coming back. He went off on a tirade about how I was passing up a golden opportunity, would never amount to anything, blah blah blah. I do remember that he ended it with, there are 2 types of people in this world, winners and losers. Which one are you? I replied, whichever type you are, I'm the other one. And got out of the van. I'm still proud of my teenage self for that one. Disclaimer, I know you guys are hoping for stories about giving everyone the finger while you walk away from a burning building, but this is something I consider to be a defining moment for how I think about jobs. So I'm gonna tell it anyway. Point shortly after graduating from high school, I was working at a temp agency and, along with several others, got sent for a 2-week contract at a distribution warehouse. For 8 hours a day, I stood next to a conveyor belt, and if a box came by with certain numbers I'd pick it up and put it on the pallet behind me. It was mind-numbingly simple work, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was the asshole boss who would come around 2 or 3 times a day just to yell at everyone. No talking. No listening to music. You're not standing close enough to your pallet. My theory was that he actually had a fancy degree in management or something and resented the fact that he was only in charge of a dirty old warehouse. And it was dirty. I started getting nosebleeds within the first week. By day 4, several people had gotten fed up and just walked out in the middle of their shifts. Shortly after, a rumor started going around that the contract was going to be extended to 3 weeks. That was when I noped out. As soon as I was done for the day, I drove over to the agency office and politely told them that I would finish the 2 weeks, but that the job sucked and I didn't want to be sent back for a third point. They were shocked. Not by the fact that I was asking to not be sent back, but by the fact that I was willing to finish the 2 weeks at all. I think they loved me after that, because my next assignment was a 6-month contract as a groundskeeper for the local hospital. It was probably the best contract they had, and I know a fact that they gave it to me because I didn't burn any bridges by leaving the warehouse right away. It was much more physically demanding work, but it had a much better work environment. TLDR, noping out gracefully is better than noping out with style. TLDR, seasonal help for ups. Worked with a driver that basically had a "I'm union, we don't need to kill ourselves" attitude. Was swapped over to a "oh my god sprint across the people's yards" attitude. Left me alone in a parking lot with several $1,000s of merch because his truck was too full. Quit that day and ratted him out to ups. One winter in college I was kinda strapped for cash, so I decided to apply for the seasonal help for ups. Got the job. Went to the intro class and they explained very calmly you are always supposed to carry the package a certain way, walk and never run, and always use proper footpaths, don't run across people's lawns, etc. I get paired with this one driver who had an attitude of "I'm union, we'll go at a comfortable speed, not kill ourselves, and if the truck isn't empty at the end of the day, well it is what it is." Have a comfortable 5-day work week with him. He explains last day I'm being transferred to another guy that really needs the help and warns me he's a little high strung. First day with the guy, he basically asks me to speed up. Okay, I can power walk. He then starts asking me to walk across people's lawns as it's quicker. I point out the intro class and he says well I really need you to go faster. Okay, sure. Power walk across a person's lawn, step in a hole in the grass on my way back, and twist my ankle. That was neat. Second day with him, we meet in a parking lot of a Walgreens, and he starts emptying the truck. I'm very confused. He explains the truck was overloaded that morning, he can't get to anything, and he's going to leave me with the packages and he'll be right back. I sat in my car, in a parking lot, afraid to leave these packages for 3 hours. He shows up like nothing is wrong, and I just say nah dude, I'm out. I get in my car, drive home, and receive a call from ups saying the driver said I left. I explain the full situation, and the girl on the other end asks me to retell my story one more time to her supervisor, which I happily oblige. Not sure whatever happened with him, but fuck that noise. Applied for a job that would have me working with tech startups creating video for a company handling their marketing. The company was originally a co-op workspace, but they were looking to expand what they offered to clients. Cool first red flag. Went to the interview. Guy who ran the marketing company would ask me a question. I would begin to answer, he would never let me finish and would say right. He either was shit as a person or was trying to make me feel like an insignificant blip in his busy schedule. Second red flag. I got a text at 3 AM in the morning saying I got the job and to call as soon as I can. Went back to bed and called in the morning. Third red flag. When I called, was told that they didn't expect someone with my experience to apply, and not only did they hire me, but also 2 of the other candidates. It would be my responsibility to manage, teach, and lead the video team. Not what I signed up for, but I've had some amazing job experiences by just saying yes to random things. Fourth red flag. I was told, in order to start paperwork, I had to go to specific office location 3 cities over. They are partnered with a program and that's where the pay from the position was coming from. I had to fill out the forms, and then I'd come back into the office to start work. Intermission. For those wondering why I'm still going through this process, I was trying to leave a soul-crushing job at the time, and unfortunately where I live, sketchy situations is common for video/photography work. Fifth red flag. I go to the specified office location. It turns out to be a city-aided work placement program for people who have trouble finding/holding jobs. The majority of people in there have never finished high school for whatever reason and are looking to be employed. The other 2 people hired are not only confused, but were never told that others were hired as well. I don't even mention the company asked me to be team lead. 6th red flag. We were given worksheets to fill out and had to write a personal essay on what kind of job we were looking for. I approached the worker assigned to us and asked them what the purpose of doing these worksheets were if we already landed the job. It seemed a little backwards. The worker was hesitant to agree. It's also at this point that alarm bells are going off in my head. I was already on the fence about this whole thing, but my priority now shifted to not only not follow through with the hiring process, but also to let the other 2 hires know how not normal this was. They looked like they were fresh out of film school and were desperate. As I left, I told them how many red flags I've been getting about the whole thing, so if they do take the job, just be cautious about the whole thing and keep an eye out for other opportunities. 7th red flag. I got a call later that night from the person who interviewed me. Told me that I needed to go into that specified office location twice a week for 6 weeks in order to complete an employment course. He tried to explain that in order for them to receive the grant/funding for our employment, they had to only hire people who had gone through that program. I declined the job offer, and the person interviewing me said, "Good, you probably wouldn't have made it in this business anyways." Rude point theory. The company created the position to receive a grant from this employment program and was planning to underpay their hires in order to take advantage of the funding. They also thought they would also end up turning a profit if they actually hired people to do the work. The issue was that they could only hire people who had went through and had completed the 6 weeks of training classes, as the funding was meant to help create opportunities for those who needed that program and went through it. This was an issue for the company because the work they wanted to hire for is considered to be a high skill level position. Job postings words, not mine. So they tried to reverse the process, hire someone and then send them through the program so they can actually hire them. Which leads me to believe they hired 3 of us, not expecting all of us to stick through it. This happened last year, so out of curiosity I checked out their website. The video department made 1 video. I'm guessing the other 2 hires stuck it out for 1 project, realized how bad the situation was, and then left. The worst part is that they probably had to do the 6 weeks of classes. Ups package handler during the holiday season. Part-time, 5 to 10 shift 4 days/week. I was in college at the time. Look, I'm not a stranger to getting my hands dirty. I had worked construction jobs. I had worked in warehouses. This job was hell. Like almost literally how I imagine hell if it were a real place. Let me walk you through it. You show up and you're immediately put in truck container parked at a dock. It's freezing because you're basically outdoors. The conveyor belt turns on. Packages start coming and they come fast. You scan every package, then play a game of 3D Tetris with boxes that weigh anywhere from 1 pound to 60 lbs. Sometimes heavy packages will just explode. You have to clean those up, but the conveyor doesn't stop. Sometimes your branch of the conveyor will get jammed with a bunch of packages. You have to climb up and clear it with a broomstick. Conveyor still running. All those jammed packages come rushing down at once, along with more packages, because the conveyor is still running. You start sprinting to catch up. Now you're launching boxes onto the wall. Then the brake alarm blows. Conveyors finally stop. Now here's a challenge. The bathroom is on one side of the warehouse. The cafeteria is on the other. You can try to do both, pee and grab a snack and a water, but you'll probably fail. So choose wisely. Because you better be back in that container when the second brake alarm blows in 15 minutes or you might get written up. Then the process starts again until your shift is over. All of this for $9/HR, which after union dues is closer to $8/HR. Lasted 2 weeks before walking into the supervisor's office and telling him I'm done. No 2 weeks, just done. And I'm a good employee. I've never been fired, never left without notice except for this hell on earth. Kirby faking Kirby. Not the fastest I've ever left a job, but second fastest. Was in a bad financial way. Needed money. The ad said guaranteed $500 weekly. Interviewed. Offered the job on the spot. Dude said guaranteed $500 weekly. But if you sell you get whatever. Is higher $500 or commission. Selling vacuums, but what the hell, I'm game. Also, all appointments are preset by the canvassers. plus a one-time $100 attendance bonus paid Saturday if you don't miss a day your first week. Wow. This all sounds great. Lol. There's a sucker born every day, am I right? Go to orientation and another 2 days of training. Trainer was an hour late for orientation. Not a good way to start a working relationship, but I'll let it slide. They were at least honest here and said training was not paid. Monday rolls around. My first day riding with a crew. I'm pumped, ready to make some money. Get to the office early. Sit down for the morning meeting and blam. The Faking Kirby song blares at 1 million decibels. YouTube this sheet. It's unreal. They play this every faking morning. All the salespeople, managers, canvassers, etc. clapping and singing right along. I thought they were playing a joke on us new people. They were not. My god, that song will haunt my dreams for years to come. Monday I shadowed someone and learned the spiel. Tuesday they put us all out on the street, knocking doors for faking hours. And I thought all the appointments were preset. What the fuck? Okay, fuck it. I really need the money, so suck it up and knock. This was repeated wed, free, and sat. Get dropped off in some random neighborhood, one that usually had a no soliciting sign in front, and start knocking shitty. Tuesday through Saturday I did 10 demos, 2 sales that didn't close due to credit issues, and 2 that really wanted it, but were on fixed incomes, and couldn't take on a new monthly bill. All told, out of the sales guys, myself included, our van only had 1 sale actually close. After we finish up Saturday evening and are headed back to the office, I start planning on which bills to pay first. Driver goes into the office and grabs our checks. I hop in my car, drive my 30 minutes home, think better and stop at the bank first. Open my check to see $100 FAQ. Driver must have missed my other check. Call him. Dude, where's my check? Oh bro, I thought they explained that in training. If you don't do 15 demos in a week you don't get $500. So let me get this straight. I tracked my hours from the time I left my house in the morning until I pulled back in the driveway at night. In 6 days I was gone just over 89 hours. And you fakers paid me $100? Yeah bro, I thought they explained that in. Click, found a new job, a real job, and now I'm super happy. TLDR, Fat Kirby. The vacuum kicks ass. The sales companies blow dirty rotten ass. I lasted a whopping 2 days working at McDonald's. First day they didn't really give any training, just threw me in at the window and had me taking orders as well as dropping fries and cleaning, etc. This was my second job and I was botching everything, faking up orders because I didn't know the process, burned the fuck out of myself with the grease from the fryers, and was so goddamn stressed that by the end of the day I felt traumatized. Second day I go in, make it about 5 minutes into the day, walk to the restroom and splash some water on my face, realize I can't do this sheet, and take my shirt off and return it, thank them for the opportunity and note the fuck out of their point. Another job I had working for a rent-to-own company. It was the slowest I've noped out of a job that I wish I would have left quickly. I started in account management and spent every day repossessing people's shit and taking their money on the road. I've never felt so disgraced in my life, but I needed the money, and it was tough to find a good gig during that time period. I remember having to take a laptop from a handicapped girl. Her father was a real piece of shit crackhead who never made payments on it, and if he did it was a few dollars that I would take to appease my manager and give them an extension on their payments. Eventually it came to the point where they were 3 months late on payments and my manager wanted to file charges on the father. I went to the house and plead with him to make some kind of payment so that I wouldn't have to take the laptop. He didn't give a shit, and if I'd had the money to make the payment myself I probably would, because the look on that little girl's face when I had to take the laptop faking crushed me. I'd considered walking out that day, but I just couldn't afford to financially. I lasted a few more years and eventually made it up to store manager of a couple different locations and was making pretty good money, but the job just sucked the soul out of me, and eventually I quit and moved away from the area because I felt like I lost my dignity working there. I try not to think about the times I worked there because it was so stressful. It was the late 1990s and I learned/worked in radio in Chicago for around 10 years. We had, at the time, moved to Seattle so that I could do my radio thing there. but Seattle radio was / is kind of the pits. And this is before the interwebs destroyed radio. Point anyway, I was applying all over the country for a morning radio gig. I wanted to be the next Emma Sorstern. Who didn't, right? Amazingly, I landed a gig in South Carolina. I won't tell you the name of the town, but it rhymes with Cork Thrill. So there I was, in my first morning gig. I was psyched. Now, a precursor to this is that this town of Cork Thrill is rather conservative. And the owner of the radio station or stations was / is incredibly conservative. But I felt he was rational, or so I thought. Oh yeah, 2 more items. 1. At the same time I had been offered the head producer job at a station in Cincinnati, and 2. At the South Carolina station I had been offered to live upstairs at the radio station until I had gotten my feet and could find a place of our own. Now the fun point, so I trundle on downstairs for my morning show. I had a nice shirt, khakis and a pair of beans on my feet. No socks. I hate socks. But I looked good, professional, and I was ready to go. So I work my first morning shift when one of the owners comes up to me, cramming, the owner, and not his real name. Now, Jbejahog, we wear socks around here. Jbejahog, well, now cramming, you know that we are on the radio here, they can't see us. Cramming, Jbejahog, this is my station, I want you to wear socks round here. Jbejahog, cramming, you got it, sir. So I went right back upstairs, grabbed the phone, and called the Cincinnati station, and asked if the head producer's position was still available. They said that it was. I said that I'd take it immediately. Later that night, after everybody went home, I packed up my purple Toyota minivan. I miss that car. Destroyed in a rollover accident when I skidded on ice, and had it ready for the next day. The next day I got up and did the morning show shift thing over again. Once the show was over I asked to my, let's call him Frig, programming director in cramming for a quick chat. And this was one of the hardest things I have ever had to do. My heart was pounding like a running rabbit, and I was sweating bullets. That stupid tie. Jbejahog, gentlemen, after a bit of time, I don't think this is going to work out. I just think that we are not going to see eye to eye on some things, and that's going to work out badly for me in the end. So, here's my key to the station. Thanks for the opportunity. Cramming, but you just got here. Now don't go running away with your tail between your legs. Jbejahog, I appreciate that, but I've made up my mind. Frig, we had 700 t-shirts printed up that said I woke up with Jbejahog. Cramming, when you interviewed with us, you were in a coat and tie. This is highly unprofessional. Jbejahog, I do feel sorry about that. And, cramming, when I interviewed with you, we did it over a video link. I had a coat and tie on for you to see. I was wearing shorts under the table. Anyway, you guys have a great day, and I noped the heck out of there and never looked back. To this day this station, in Cork Thrill, South Carolina, is still the same conservative sheet stain on the map that it was 20 years ago. I drove to Cincinnati and told the wife to change the mover's destination. That was a fun chat, and we had a pretty good 2 years there. But I never had another morning show again. Oh well, life goes on.